This video is about what happens when you experience a violent level of motivation in your bones, when you are cursed with obsessiveness, when you are cursed with motivation. And when you come from that psychology, that's what it's going to take to become world class. It is a different level than just being passionate. And when you start tapping into this, certain signposts are going to come up. Certain signs of obsession are going to come up. And that is what this video is about. Identifying if you're tapped into that or not, and experiencing that level of being cursed with obsession is a totally different level than passion. So let's lock in on this right now and continue. In the same way that you may experience a biological tension in your body where your DNA wants to procreate, or it wants to use the bathroom, or it wants to eat food, and your DNA is driving you to do certain things, you will feel a tension in your body that needs output, that needs to output its energy into a project, that needs to dig its teeth into a project to be world class. That is what it feels like, a borderline biological tension. And when you have that, when it's almost like a biological drive, but towards a passion or obsession of yours, well, then what happens is you can begin to forego your lesser level biological drives because you become really focused. And what I mean by that is this: you can get very distracted with wanting food all the time, wanting constant snacks. You can very well get distracted with wanting to pursue a lot of different biological drives that you have. But when you are pegged at the level of obsession, you forego those distracting elements of your biology. Taking a day off, it doesn't become an option anymore for you. It feels like a form of death if you take a day off. It feels like a form of death to lose your momentum. You have to protect your momentum as if it's the most important thing in the world, because if you lose it, then you're screwed. But when you're cursed with obsession, you will naturally begin to get a sense of when you're in momentum and when you're out. And you notice that day where you didn't quite give it your all, or you skipped that session that you should have been doing, you feel the heavy hit to your momentum. Another thing that begins to happen is you begin to filter the world around you through the lens of your obsession, through the lens of that obsession that you're cursed with. Meaning, like, if you're obsessed with tennis, then you see a businessman, you think about how he's doing business through the lens of how it affects tennis. When you see a soccer player, you look for parallels between that soccer player's sport and your sport. So your whole RAS begins to color the world around you. Like, you get a lens over your eyes to where everything gets filtered through the lens of your craft. You'll begin to get comfortable with isolation because the average person is drawing emotional sustenance from their friends, from their family, from their hobbies, but you begin to draw it from your work because you are cursed with obsession. And when this happens, you better believe you get comfortable being alone, and you get comfortable being really obsessed while you're alone. You'll be comfortable getting labeled, and those labels have to fall off you, or slide off of you like water off a duck's back, because people are going to call you a loner, they're going to call you a psycho, they're going to think you're crazy, they're going to think you're a hermit, they're going to think you're a loser, whatever it is. They'll have a label for you because you are obsessed, and obsession makes you different. The motivation that you're tapping into feels violent. It has an edge to it. It has an intensity to it. It shivers you down to your bones with excitement. So that's how you know you're experiencing something special. You're cursed with obsession, because you can actually feel that motivation in your body, but you also feel it in your brain. And almost like with meditation, you develop a level of brain awareness. You can feel what your brain is doing to you at all times. When you get cursed with obsession, you also develop a brain awareness. It can even put you into a deeper meditative state, more into presence, more aware of what your brain is doing to you at all times, and more aware of sensations as well. You can feel your dopamine blasted up in your brain, and you can feel when your dopamine is lower. But when you're cursed with obsession, you tend to have higher dopamine. When you're truly obsessed with your work, you begin to have a deep reservoir of energy to where your stamina is really built up. You can keep working again and again and again, past what the average human can do. You also just have a surplus of energy to where you just need less sleep, you need less rest. And when you do rest, and when you do sleep, and when you do dream, you're dreaming about your work, you're dreaming about your craft, you're dreaming about your obsession, you're getting dreams that may even feel like a psychedelic, divine connection to your work, a spiritual connection to your work, visions, otherworldly imagery about your work that you cannot put into words. These are some of the things that will begin to happen. You're walking around, you're daydreaming about your work, and you'll begin to tap into this when you truly become obsessed. When you are cursed with obsession, you no longer productively procrastinate. You don't overthink your work. You don't add unnecessary steps to your work. You just take the steps that are necessary and just take the actions that are necessary to produce a result, to get the wins along your path. Now, why do you do this? You do this because life begins feeling clear. It feels deep. Your work feels deep. Your work feels clear. Your work feels profound. Life feels profound. And they're all interconnected. But when you have that clarity of thought, that clarity of vision, because you're obsessed, you just take the actions that are necessary to produce the results within your craft. And you begin to develop a deep instinct for what comes next. And that is a sixth sense that comes only with obsession. When you are cursed with obsession, you become fearless. When you are fearless, you'd be willing to die for your goals. When you're willing to die for your goals, your perception of death is different than the average person. Your relationship to death will change when you have a true obsession with something, because you'll do anything to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish within that. Also, what begins to happen is you begin to unplug from the opinions of other people. You begin to unplug from groupthink, from social conditioning, and you get in touch with yourself without the opinions of other people setting up shop in your head. When you are cursed with obsession, you have a relentlessness that doesn't quit despite failures that may come your way. You have a persistence and a ability to course correct despite mistakes that you have made. The average person fails and then quits, but you don't have that luxury because you have obsession cursed. You have obsession that is embedded in your DNA. So what begins to happen? If it begins to feel like you're in a video game and you hit the cheat code and you have unlimited lives, you can keep dying again and again and again in the video game, but nothing happens. You just get to start the level over again. That's what it's like when you're cursed with obsession. You just get to start the level over again and you just keep trying to figure it out. Kobe Bryant had this great line where people were like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your eggs in one basket with basketball. What if basketball doesn't work out for you? And they're telling Kobe Bryant this when he's young. He says, you know what? I'll just make more eggs. I'll just make more eggs. So he'll just keep going, and he'll find a way to make it work. When you're cursed with obsession, you begin to relate better with people and also worse with people. You relate better with people because you relate with others who are also cursed with obsession. So it's almost like a Fight Club. You can nod your head with other people that are obsessed just like you are. You also relate better with people because you've been down the path of mastery. And when you go down the path of mastery, you get deep insights, psychological insights into how your brain works, how the mind works, how psychology works. And this helps you understand human psychology better. It makes you a better psychologist. But it also makes you more unrelatable to people because people who aren't obsessed with you completely look like aliens to you. There's no point of relatability at all, and you are simply different than them. There's no point of relatability at all. When you truly are cursed with obsession, the subtle details of your work begin to drive you crazy in a good way. For example, if you're a tennis player, you're looking at like the Wilson tennis ball and you're like the fibers of the Wilson tennis ball. Or I don't know if there's a Nike tennis ball. You're like, oh, look at the Nike tennis ball. Look at the differences. Your RES begins to focus in on all these little details that the average person doesn't notice, but it makes a big difference to you. You're a businessman. You begin to focus on the fabric of the suit that you're wearing, the little details, nuances of the deal that you're doing. And these things begin to like really take place and set up shop in your mind. And it gives you a good feeling when you think about these subtle details. When you're cursed with motivation, you can also look at other people and almost like a psychic, look at them and quickly make a snapshot judgment on how motivated that person is, how cursed with obsession that person is, how passionate that person is. Because you're looking at them and you're looking at their body language, subtle cues in their eye contact, their vocal tonality, just their general energy, the way they walk into a room, and you can kind of gauge their level of motivation. You can kind of gauge how engaged they are with their work. For the average Joe, hindsight is 20/20. They look back at their life and they're like, I would have done this differently. I would have changed this. I would have course corrected this, whatever. But for the person who is cursed with obsession, foresight is 20/20, not hindsight. Foresight is 20/20 because you have a deep conviction that is like obsession's partner. When you're truly obsessed with something, that builds a deep conviction. And when you have that conviction, you can predict your future pretty accurately. You can be like, I am deeply obsessed with this. If you truly want something, you'll find a way to get it. So you can predict the future in terms of what it is that you're going to get. Like you could say, okay, I want to accomplish this. And if you're truly obsessed with it, you make it happen. So in conclusion, The curse of obsessiveness happens when you are no longer in control of motivation. The motivation is now in control of you. Normally it's like you're here, your goal's here, and it's like all space-time continuum to get to your goal. Now it feels like your goal is trying to get to you. It's a difference in psychology. It feels like a vision, almost like an entity, like this alive vision is out there in the universe, and it's using you as a vehicle to express itself in the physical world. The motivation is expressing itself through you. You're not trying to tap into motivation. Motivation is out there trying to tap into you. That's what it begins to feel like. It is a curse. It is not something that you are at the cause of. It is something you are actually at the effect of. The cliche statement that there are two births in life, the birth when you're actually born and the birth when you actually find out the reason why you're born, is actually true. Otherworldly obsession, the curse of obsession, is the second birth. And it goes way past feelings of just basic level motivation, trying to be joyful in life, trying to be fulfilled. It is a deep, otherworldly, alien-like obsessiveness that is channeled through you. That's what it feels like. And it is something that you can't put into words. It is something that you have to find for yourself. Nobody can actually pinpoint this into words because it is something that can never be encapsulated into words. Being cursed with obsession cannot be faked. It must come from deep within. And when you feel it from deep within, it feels violent in your bones. The motivation feels very, very intense. And it seeps out of your pores. It is a crazy level of motivation. And you need to allow that obsession into you. You need to allow that level of obsession into you. You need to begin to resonate with the level of obsession that is borderline psycho. And you must take on the challenge of that obsession. That is the most important thing. Accept the challenge that obsession with your work is presenting you with. Accept that challenge. It is a decision you have to make with yourself. Nobody can make that decision for you on whether you're going to actually follow through with your obsession or not. But once you feel that feeling, you can never unfeel it. Once you feel that feeling of following your obsession in life, you'll never be able to unfeel it. And it is the deep reservoir of endless motivation that is needed to actually conquer your passion and be world class at it. So that's what I'll leave you guys off with, and I'll see you guys in the next video.